I thought I'd never speak to my dad again until this happened. So, this is going to sound insane, but I, 31M, decided to invite my ex-girlfriend Jess, 29F, to Thanksgiving dinner with my family this year. Before anyone asks, no, I'm not totally out of my mind, or maybe I am. Ick. There's a backstory. Jess and I dated for 4 years, broke up last spring. It wasn't explosive, we just grew apart. Life stuff, work stuff, different goals. We didn't hate each other. Actually, I'd say we parted on pretty okay terms. Even managed a few "hope you're doing well" texts over the summer. She moved out, started fresh, and I focused on my job and family. But here's the thing. Our families are weirdly interconnected. My little sister is best friends with her cousin, our moms still swap recipes, and my dad thinks Jess was the best thing that ever happened to me. No pressure, Dad. So when my mom called 2 weeks ago, saying she hoped I'd bring someone to dinner, a friend, or someone special, I joked that I could invite Jess. She thought it was a great idea. Closure is healthy, honey. And suddenly I was texting Jess, half expecting her to laugh it off. Instead, she said yes. Why not? We're adults. I don't even know if I wanted closure, or if I just missed the version of me I was when we were happy. Leading up to Thanksgiving, I felt a mix of nervous and weirdly excited. My sister thought it was iconic. My brother made bets on whether we'd end up fighting or making out classy. Dad started grilling me about intentions. But mostly, I tried to imagine a normal, grown-up dinner with an ex, as if that was even possible. I'll admit, part of me hoped for something. Maybe just a nice memory to soften the breakup, or a chance to show everyone, myself included, that I'd moved on. Or maybe I wanted drama. Guess I got more than I bargained for. Thanksgiving Day. The house smelled like cinnamon and roasted turkey, and my nerves were shot. I kept pretending everything was chill, setting the table, dodging my mom's questions, "Should I seat you and Jess together, honey?" and ignoring my brother's stupid wink-wink faces. My hands shook when I poured wine, which my sister totally noticed and teased me about. At exactly 3:07 p.m., Jess texted, "Parking now. Should I ring the bell or just walk in like old times?" My heart did that weird fluttering thing, half nostalgia, half dread. I texted, "Just come in. Everyone will be happy to see you." Then I stood by the hallway, suddenly 16 again, terrified and excited. She walked in, and for a moment, it was like no time had passed. Same dark hair pulled into a messy bun, big scarf, and that nervous smile she used to get when she was bracing herself for something awkward. She handed my mom a pie, store-bought, don't judge, and hugged my sister. My dad literally lit up, shouting, "Jess, you're just in time for football." Like she'd been gone a week, not almost a year. The first 10 minutes were surprisingly easy. Jess and my mom swapped baking tips. My dad asked about her new job. My sister gossiped about mutual friends. Everyone acted like it was totally normal she was here. I tried to relax, cracked a few jokes. I could almost convince myself we were just two old friends sharing a holiday. But then my brother Nate swaggered in, took one look at Jess, and grinned. "Didn't think I'd see you at the table again," he said, not even trying to hide the smirk. Jess raised an eyebrow. Classic Jess, never letting him see her sweat, and replied, "Well, I heard you'd be here, so I couldn't resist." Nate laughed, but his eyes said, "Let's see how long this lasts." I started to notice the tension beneath the surface. My aunt shot me a look that said, "Really?" My grandma squeezed my hand and whispered, "Brave move, honey." It was as if everyone was waiting for something to go wrong, but nobody wanted to say it out loud. And then, just as we were all settling in, the doorbell rang again. I wasn't expecting anyone else. That's when the first real ripple hit, and the awkwardness officially started. I shot my mom a questioning look. She shrugged, already halfway to the door. "Maybe it's your cousin, running late," she said, but her voice was thin. Jess shifted next to me, eyes darting toward the hallway, fingers twisting her scarf. She only did that when she was nervous. Everyone's chatter faded into this weird, electric silence. When the door opened, in walked Mark, my old college roommate. Mark, who used to come to our place for Sunday pizza nights. Mark who, until last year, was just as close to Jess as he was to me. But after the breakup, he kind of vanished from both our lives. He hadn't RSVP'd. He never came to family holidays anymore. So why now? Mark carried a bottle of wine and looked equally surprised to see Jess. Hey, wow, Jess. Didn't know you'd be here, he said, too loud, and pulled her into a quick, awkward hug. He greeted my family like nothing was weird, but I caught a flicker of tension. His eyes lingered just a bit too long on Jess. Mom clapped her hands, determined to carry on. Well, we have plenty of food. Come in. Jess, you'll have to tell us about your new apartment. But something had shifted. I noticed Jess giving Mark those quick glances she used to give me when she needed backup, and Mark kept finding reasons to drift toward her in conversation. My brother, never subtle, leaned over and muttered, "So, is this an ex's reunion or what?" We sat for dinner, and the mood tried to recover. Jess told a funny story about work, Dad bragged about his homemade stuffing, and Mark tried to keep things light, but everyone was hyper-aware of the new dynamic. The old, comfortable family rhythm was gone. Now it was more like we were all holding our breath. Then, mid-meal, my grandma brought up a story from the good old days, when Jess and I hosted Thanksgiving together at our tiny apartment. You two were so happy, she sighed, not meaning to be cruel, but the room tensed anyway. I tried to deflect, but Jess met my eyes, and for a moment, it felt like everyone saw right through us. Our history, the what-ifs, and maybe even a few unresolved feelings neither of us had planned to face tonight. The first cracks were showing, and I had no idea what was coming next. After Grandma's comment, the air turned brittle. I forced a smile and changed the subject: football, politics, anything, while Jess politely answered questions about her new place. But everyone was walking on eggshells. Even the clinking of silverware seemed louder than usual. Mark, sensing the tension, tried to lighten things up with his old party trick, guessing people's favorite movie quotes. Normally, it'd break the ice, but tonight, it just reminded me how many traditions Jess and I had shared with him. Jess laughed at first, but her smile slipped when he rattled off lines from the cheesy rom-com we used to watch every Valentine's. I caught the look she gave him. A mix of nostalgia and warning, like she was telling him to stay in the past where he belonged. My sister, always blunt, finally blurted, "So, Jess, seeing anyone?" I almost choked on my wine. Jess paused, glanced at me, then shook her head. "Not really. Just focusing on work, you know." Mark looked down at his plate. I wondered if anyone else caught it. This weird undercurrent, like the three of us were actors who'd lost the script. My dad tried to revive the friendly exes narrative, asking Jess if she missed my terrible coffee or my legendary attempts at pancakes. Everyone laughed, but it felt forced. I could feel my face getting hot, embarrassed for both of us. The conversation started to split, my aunt talking loudly to my cousin at one end, my brother and sister cracking jokes at the other. Jess, Mark, and I were left in this awkward triangle. Finally, Jess excused herself to the kitchen, mumbling something about helping with dessert. I followed her, almost out of habit, and found her alone by the sink, breathing hard. "You okay?" I whispered. She nodded, but her eyes were glassy. "I didn't expect Mark," she said quietly. "I didn't expect any of this." Before I could answer, Mark appeared in the doorway. "Hey, dessert reinforcements," he joked, but his tone was off. For a second, the three of us stood there, trapped by memories and what-ifs. I realized then that Thanksgiving wasn't just about food or family. It was about facing everything we hadn't said and everything we weren't sure we wanted to. And it was only getting messy, eh? The kitchen felt like neutral ground, until it wasn't. Jess leaned against the counter, arms folded tight, her gaze flicking between me and Mark. For a second, nobody said anything. I could hear the muffled laughter from the dining room, a whole world away. Mark broke the silence first. "Didn't mean to crash your Thanksgiving," he said, scratching the back of his neck. "Your mom invited me last minute. Guess she thought we should all catch up." He glanced at Jess, searching her face for a reaction. Jess let out a breathy laugh. "It's fine. Just surprised, that's all." Her voice was calm, but I could tell she was rattled. I cleared my throat. "I wasn't expecting this, either." That sounded stupid, like I was blaming Mark for something none of us could name. Jess's eyes met mine, then darted away. There was a beat where Mark looked like he wanted to say something more, something important. Instead, he just said, "Well, I'll let you two handle the pie," and retreated, grabbing a bowl of whipped cream on his way out. Jess and I stood there, alone, the hum of the dishwasher the only sound between us. I tried to fill the silence. You don't have to stay, if it's too weird, I offered, instantly regretting it. I mean, I want you here, but only if you're comfortable. She shook her head. No, I'm glad you invited me. I really am. It's just harder than I thought, I guess. Her voice was soft, vulnerable. I wanted to ask her what was really on her mind, but my mom breezed in, arms full of plates, and the moment was lost. Back at the table, Jess pasted on her smile again, but I noticed her hands trembling as she sliced the pie. Mark avoided our end of the table, burying himself in conversation with my brother. My sister kept glancing at me, like she was waiting for a confession or a disaster. Maybe both. When dessert was served, my aunt raised a toast to new beginnings. Everyone clinked glasses, but I saw Jess flinch, just barely. Beneath all the laughter and small talk, I felt something shifting. Old boundaries were breaking, and I could sense a storm coming, one that none of us were truly ready for. Dessert went from sweet to tense in record time. It started when my brother, already on his second glass of wine, piped up. So, Mark, you been dating anyone since college? Or are you still pining after? He stopped, glancing at Jess, and grinned. The good old days? Jess gave him a look sharp enough to cut glass, but Mark just smirked and shook his head. I don't pine, he said, too casually. I moved forward. He looked at Jess for a fraction of a second, and I saw something flicker between them. My heart thudded hard. My aunt, always loving a bit of drama, pounced. You three used to be inseparable, she said, swirling her wine. What happened anyway? For a moment, nobody spoke. The air was heavy, everyone's eyes flicking from Mark, to Jess, to me. Jess put down her fork, her hands suddenly steady. Sometimes people just take different paths, she said quietly. But Mark didn't let it drop. Sometimes it's not that simple. He turned to me, and then, to my shock, to my mom. I actually think there's something we should all know. I'm sorry for dropping it here, but I can't keep pretending nothing happened. The room went completely silent. I felt my stomach twist. Jess looked pale, bracing herself. Mark took a shaky breath. Last spring, after you two broke up, Jess and I, well, we saw each other for a while. His voice was apologetic, but firm. It was nothing serious, but I thought you should know. I should have told you sooner, man. It was like every conversation stopped mid-sentence. My dad stared at his plate. My sister's eyes widened in disbelief. My aunt gasped, delighting in the chaos. Jess's cheeks flushed deep red, but she kept her chin up. It wasn't planned, she said, her voice shaking only a little. We were both hurting. I'm sorry. I felt heat rush to my face. Hurt, anger, confusion, all at once. For a moment, I wanted to say something, anything, but my words caught in my throat. All I could think was, nothing about this Thanksgiving was turning out the way I imagined. Time froze. I sat there, fork halfway to my mouth, as Mark's words echoed in my head. It felt like the walls of the dining room had caved in, everyone exposed, all of our secret mess on display under the bright light of my mother's chandelier. My mom broke the silence first. Ever the peacekeeper. Well, she said quietly, forcing a smile. Sometimes life gets complicated, doesn't it? But her voice trembled, and she couldn't meet my eyes. My brother muttered, damn, under his breath. My sister looked like she wanted to disappear into her chair. My aunt's mouth was still open, eyes darting between us, hoping for more drama. Jess swallowed, her hands folded in her lap, knuckles white. I never meant for anyone to get hurt, she said, eyes fixed on me. We were both in a bad place. I should have been honest, but I didn't want to make things worse. Her voice was raw, shaky but sincere. Mark nodded, not even bothering to touch his pie. I screwed up, man. You were my friend. I don't expect forgiveness, but I had to say it. I could barely process it, anger and sadness mingling in my chest, sharp and messy. Part of me wanted to lash out, demand why nobody thought I could handle the truth. Another part just wanted to leave the table, lock myself in my room, and pretend the holiday never happened. But I stayed. Maybe it was pride. Maybe I just needed answers. Why now? I finally managed, my voice small. Why today in front of everyone? Mark glanced at Jess, then back at me. Because I couldn't pretend anymore. Not after seeing you two together again. I needed to clear the air. The rest of dinner was a blur. Nobody knew what to say. My dad made a lame joke about football scores. My aunt switched topics to the weather. The laughter was forced, the smiles brittle. The pie tasted like sawdust. As the dishes were cleared and coats came out, I realized something. We'd all been pretending, clinging to old stories and safe illusions. Now, the truth was out, and nothing would be the same. But maybe, just maybe, that was the first real step forward. When the last plates were cleared, the family scattered in awkward clusters. My brother on his phone, my aunt whispering with my mom in the kitchen, my dad pretending to nap in front of the TV. Jess lingered at the table, staring at her empty coffee cup. Mark stood by the hallway, keys in hand, looking lost. I almost escaped to my room, but Jess caught my eye. "Can we talk?" she asked softly, voice so different from the bold Jess I remembered. We stepped onto the porch. The cold November air stung, but it felt good. Real, bracing, nothing to hide behind. For a moment, neither of us said anything. I waited for anger, but what I felt was more complicated. Relief, sadness, a strange sense of release. Jess looked up at me, her eyes rimmed red. "I'm sorry. I should have told you. I was a mess after we ended, and Mark was there. It wasn't fair to you." I sighed, running my hand through my hair. It hurt, hearing it like that. "I just wish you'd trusted me enough to be honest." My voice cracked on the word trusted, and she flinched. She nodded. "I know. I wanted to, but I was afraid it would destroy what little we had left." We stood in silence, watching our breath cloud in the cold. Inside, I could hear my family pretending everything was normal, laughter a little too loud. Mark came out, his shoes crunching on the frost. "Hey," he said, eyes on the ground. "I'm sorry, man. I shouldn't have blindsided you. I thought if I did it now, with everyone here, I wouldn't back out." It wasn't enough, but it was honest. I let out a shaky breath. "You broke my trust. Both of you. But I get it, I guess. We were all lost." Mark looked up, his face open raw. "I miss having you as a friend. I know I don't deserve it, but I hope someday we can talk again." I shrugged. "Maybe. Just not today." Jess squeezed my arm, gentle and sad. "I hope you can forgive us eventually, even if we never go back." I didn't have the words yet, but for the first time all night, the air felt lighter. As if honesty, even painful, was better than silence. After Mark left, his apology hanging in the air like fog, I stood alone with Jess on the porch for a long time. The silence wasn't as heavy anymore. There was nothing left to hide, no more pretending, just two people sorting through the ashes of what used to be. "I should go," Jess finally said, pulling her coat tighter. "Your family probably thinks I ruined Thanksgiving." I half smiled. "Honestly, I think they're just glad the turkey didn't burn. But this was a lot." I hesitated, then added, "I'm glad you came, though, even with everything. It forced me to face some things I've been avoiding." Jess nodded, her breath clouding in the night. "Me too. It hurts, but I needed to let go. Of us, of all the guilt. I want you to be happy, even if it's not with me. Especially if it's not with me." There was a strange peace in those words. I realized I'd been clinging to some old version of us, afraid that letting go meant failing. But holding on had just left both of us stuck. We hugged, awkward, gentle, honest. Not a promise, not a plea, just a quiet goodbye. When I came back inside, my family gave me space. My mom squeezed my hand. "I just want you to be happy, sweetheart." That's all I ever wanted. My dad, for all his bluster, patted my back and mumbled, "Takes guts to invite an ex." Not sure I'd do it. Later, as I sat in my childhood room, I found myself replaying the night, not with anger, but with a kind of gratitude. It was messy, it was painful, but it was real. Mark's secret was out. Jess and I were finally honest, if only in the ending. Thanksgiving would never be the same for any of us, but maybe that was okay. Maybe, sometimes, family and friendship have to be broken open before they can start to heal. Maybe forgiveness isn't forgetting. It's letting go of the hope for a different past. And maybe, moving forward, I'd finally be able to open the door to something new. It's been a few days since that Thanksgiving, and honestly, I'm still processing it all. Part of me wishes things had gone smoother, that there'd been fewer confessions and less pain. But another part knows it was time for the truth. We were all stuck in old roles, pretending for comfort's sake, and it took one wild, uncomfortable dinner to break the spell. Would I recommend inviting your ex to a family holiday? Probably not, unless you're ready for every skeleton in the closet to come tumbling out. But I don't regret it. Facing the truth, even when it hurts, is better than living in denial. It forced me to grow up, to set new boundaries, and to finally let go of what I thought I needed. If you're reading this and thinking about reconnecting with an ex, or trying to blend old relationships with family traditions, be ready for things to get messy. Be honest, be kind, and don't expect closure to look neat. Sometimes it's just a little peace after the storm. Thanks for listening, Reddit.